Thank you for stealing my first question, namely who uses an ad blocker. But yeah, glad to have many fans here. I'm going to talk about our cat and mouse game with Facebook, in particular about ad blocking, of course, in general. And as a proclaimed cat lover, you can imagine who I think we are and who is Facebook. Of course, Facebook is so much bigger and has awesome engineers that it's not always clear who is the cat and who is the mouse. But to introduce, so you all know Facebook, obviously, to introduce Adblock Plus to the ones of you who don't know Adblock Plus, as a software, we've got over 1 billion downloads. We've got over 100 million active users. It's 100% open source and a team of about 100 people, headquartered in Cologne, Germany. We do have a small office in Berlin. We've just noticed that Berlin is just so much more attractive for recruiting. When people are from outside the world, coming from outside the world, they always want to go to Berlin. And so that's been one of the core reasons why we've opened a Berlin office, and it's working really nicely. And of course, what the software does is blocking ads on mobile and on desktop, annoying ads like pop-ups, like video ads, like banners, everything. Very simple value proposition. Ads are annoying, and they also have a lot of side effects, which I'm going to get into detail, but I'm going to start with probably for us, the best reference we've ever gotten, and it was Edward Snowden on his Twitter feed saying using an ad blocker is not just a right, but a duty, for obviously various reasons. Annoyance is the first one. I don't have to go into that one. Ads load on average with over 50% faster without ads, and of course, all the visual clutter is gone. No doubt about that. But then there are also a multitude of other reasons. Malvertising is one. Malvertising is basically a type of carried attacks, type of a virus transported through advertising. So someone clicks on an ad and then something else happens, some snippet of code is deployed. Actually, just a couple of weeks recently, the German parliament, the Deutsche Bundestag, was a victim of exactly one of those attacks. So it's a very serious problem, and it's increasing because more and more advertising is served programmatically. And then there is tracking, which is basically everything which is below the waterline. When you think of ads and tracking as an iceberg, the ads is the stuff you see, but then the tracking is the stuff beyond that. And it's the tracking of personality profiles, it's the tracking of everything all the companies know about you. And if you watch, you go on a site like Bild or basically almost any other newspaper, you find anywhere from 20 to 100 trackers from various companies all over the world tracking your behavior and trying to get a snippet of something they want to know about you. And obviously, ad blocking can prohibit that as well. Then there's data costs. Websites have been growing immensely over time. Within a couple years, 3-4 times to over more than 2 megabytes per one website. And that is especially a big problem on mobile. The best study here comes from the New York Times, and it's the cost of mobile ads to you as a consumer on the top news websites. And so, for example, Boston.com, ironically, which is owned by the New York Times, was the biggest offender. And what the stats mean is, as a consumer, now those are US data plans, they're a bit more expensive than in Germany. Here, it'd probably be a little less, but the relationship is the same. So if you visit Boston.com with a mobile phone, the user would spend on average 32 cents to download advertising he or she didn't want to see in the first place, and only 8 cents for the editorial content. That's the first irony of the story. The second irony of the story is Boston.com does not earn 32% of the advertising from an individual user. They maybe earn 1 cent or 2. So it's an absolutely economic imbalance. So the serving of an annoyance even costs more than what the publisher, who of course needs to finance content, gets in the first place. And here we are basically at the core topic of ad blocking, and something probably many of you will ask is like, well, yeah, ad blocking is nice, and as a user I like it, but how do publishers finance their content? That is a very, very important question, and of course, it's one we need to answer, because otherwise ad blocking is just free riding, and that's not right. At the same time, ad blocking will be there. We know that if something is technologically possible, it will be there and users will use it, so we have to have some sort of form of a more responsible ad blocking, and this is kind of what we stand for. We stand for something, and that's basically the philosophy. The philosophy I developed together with the original founder of Adblock Plus, and I don't take credit for developing this tool. I did develop a lot of computer programs when I was younger, and now I'm a little more into the business side, but this would be beyond my capability. That credit goes to a guy called Vladimir Paland, who started Adblock Plus as a hobby project, but together we actually thought, okay, how can we make ad blocking more fair? And over time, after we started the company together, we've done a lot of studies. We've asked our users. We've done external research. This is an external research, and it became very clear that people aren't against advertising per se. They're against annoying and bad advertising. And if you look at the stats, you see stuff on the left side, which is stuff people find highly annoying. And this is a scientific study, but we could have also just done it by just asking the room here. It's common sense. Big banners, pop-ups, unskippable video ads, all of that is very annoying. At the same time, on the right side, search ads, small text ads, static ads are not a problem. People are actually okay with that. And this is the core philosophy which went into our product. And let me see. And so we've defined criteria. The criteria fill a couple of pages long, but the essence is there are three things. It's placement, it's size, and distinction. Placement is very simple. Ads should not be over the content or obscuring the content or in between. Size is also very clear. It shouldn't just cover the whole page or even more than 15 or 25%, depending on where it is. And distinction means that advertising should always be clearly marked and labeled and never pretend to be not advertising. Those are three things which probably you all as users would immediately say, yes, we subscribe to that. And if those things are in place, we're fine with actually seeing ads. And actually, this is what most of our users think. Over 95% of users are fine with that. To take this one step further, we've actually put this into a formal committee who defines those standards. A committee, unlike other copycats of ours who've done similar things, we have a user coalition for users. We have obviously for-profit companies, ad tech companies, publishers, and so on. And we have experts, and all of them are part of the internet ecosystem and the ecosystem of ads, and something where we want to make sure that all three of those stakeholders are fairly and equally represented. That brings me now actually to my core topic, the fight between Facebook and Adblock Plus. Facebook has a lot of annoying ads. Facebook also has some good ads. But also, they didn't really like our standards, I guess. And so they started to engage in a battle. Facebook, as an innovative company, and I have a lot of respect for what they do, they've been living by that principle to test new ad formats that are harder to ignore and just kind of see what sticks. Sometimes retracting ads which are too annoying. I give them credit for that. But there's been obviously a lot of experimental stuff. And So Facebook over time has been testing all types of ads. This is kind of not even a full history of all the ads Facebook has been testing over time, and some of those are still there, some are actually long gone. And so what happened? One day last year in August, we woke up and we saw this headline. We really learned about this from the press. Facebook will force advertising on ad blocking users. And they've been testing technology to basically disguise ads. And here we're talking about desktop from ad blocking software. So until then, actually, all Adblock Plus users have had the benefit of having Facebook ad-free. So we were kind of scrambling, okay, what does this mean? And the next couple of days became a big ping pong fight, so to say, with Facebook. So we deployed a fix where essentially Facebook, then the ads were taken away, Facebook deployed another fix, and so on. And this went on for a couple of days. Now we're kind of like in between. There's some things which are blocked, other things not, depending on the ad blocker. It's kind of a constant war, but for about this period of time, it was a real battle. And now you have to, of course, see that we're a 100-people company compared to I don't know what Facebook has these days, 10,000, 20,000 people with vastly more resources. But we, on the other side, had a big community. The filters, in our case, the filters who actually then define the criteria, the blocking of the software, are often written by community members all over the world. So actually, the open source community was rallying behind us. So it is, and it continues to be, a very interesting fight. What was really cool for us, in this week, we got a massive amount of press. We've got like hundreds and hundreds of articles, TV stuff. It was this fight of this small German startup with a community against Facebook as one of the biggest online companies of the world. And the fight is still going on, but that week was probably one of the most intense weeks we had in the lifetime of our company. This is something we were especially proud of. That was the title of Ad Week. The week after, putting a fight between Adblock and Facebook. On the right, obviously, Mark Zuckerberg. I still, to the day, do not know who the guy on the left is. It's not Vladimir Palan, it's not me. It's neither one of our competitors, who often have similar symbols and logos. It's probably just some kind of drawing of someone whom they thought how a guy in the basement hacking an ad blocker looks like. But nevertheless, we were kind of proud of being on the title of Ad Week US with all our small German startup. Yeah, so that was our small fight with Facebook. 3 kind of little calls to action for you as users, advertisers, or publishers, because we have those 3 constituencies essentially on the open web. Obviously, as a user, I can just repeat what Snowden said: using an ad blocker is not a right, but a duty. As a publisher, if you're a publisher here, you have some kind of magazine, you're a content producer, my message to you is really that Adblock Plus is the only ad blocker which tries to strike a balance. And striking a balance is often hard. It's easy to be an extremist on either side, not just here, but also in politics or anything. It's easy to blame one side. It's easy as an ad blocker to say, all ads are bad, let's just kill all ads. That's easy. It's an easy product. On the other side, it's easy as a publisher to say, hey, I just want to make money. But to keep a balance is hard. And we're trying in this way to only charge big companies. So if that's part of how we make the balance, and of course with the criteria. So if you're a publisher and you produce some kind of content and you have acceptable ads, you can get whitelisted for free. 90% of our sites are whitelisted for free. You just do it, you fill out a form, you specify the ads, and they basically slip through the standard filters of Adblock Plus. And because we strike a good balance, as I said, 95% of users are okay with that balance, and we're actually quite proud of that. So please make use of that, because we want small sites, and even bigger sites. The hurdle is very high. It's like 10 million ad impressions. Until then, it's free. We want small sites to survive and to make better advertising. And to reach that goal, we want to incentivize good advertising, and that service is offered for free. And as an advertiser, if you're a startup or a bigger company or whoever, as an advertiser, the one thought I want to plant in your head is that acceptable ads and good ads respect users, and respecting users protects your brand. And that is the core philosophy, or should be the core philosophy of any advertising. Advertising should never annoy the users, and that's the principle we live by with Adblock Plus, but also, of course, you should employ to any other method of advertising. That was it from my end. Thank you very much. Feel free to reach me. I also have an AMA later at 4:20 down here. Just write me an email, Twitter, whatever. Happy to answer your questions, and thank you, Berlin. Thank you very much.
So yes, as Tim said, there is an AMA, which is at, when was that,
4:20, so in a good half an hour.
So there are lots of questions on Slido, but unfortunately we've run out of time, so you can get those questions directly to Tim at the AMA. Oh, no, okay, I've just been informed that we have time. You got time for some questions?
Next speaker is late?
Yep.
Good, even better. Yeah, sure.
All right, so I have some questions here. The most highly rated question is by Anonymous. Where do Adblock Plus profits actually come from?
So 90% of sites are free, and the big sites are charged. So if you're a big corporation and you want to get whitelisting services for ads, and that's really important to us, only ads which comply the criteria. No matter how big you are, how much you pay, the standards are the same whether for a small or a big company, but they have to pay for the certification of acceptable ads, and that's our business model.
Oh, okay. Cool. The next highly rated one was, nowadays more and more websites are blocking content for users that have ad blocker. How do you accommodate to this trend?
Yeah, great question. It's certainly something we're seeing. It's the right of the publisher to do what they want. Restricting content is fine. I think what we've seen a lot of times is that publishers then see their numbers plummet because people are simply not willing to put down an put down an ad blocker to see some content. In some cases it works. If you have really unique content as a publisher, having a friendly message and say, hey, you know, please turn off your ad blocker, and then, of course, you have good advertising to those people, because it's not the standard crowd, then that actually can work. So I think as long as publishers, as with everything, publishers, if they think long-term and they treat the user fairly, that is part of kind of how they optimize their revenue, so it's fine.
Cool. Oh, this is an interesting one. Also one that I'm interested in. I mean, your work, as you said yourself, is quite convict, you know, going against the flow. Have you experienced any threats for what you do?
Not physical threats. We've been called a lot of funny names. Like the boss of IAB USA, the biggest online advertising lobby organization in the United States, has called us some kind of, it was a funny term, I don't even know. Like, well, we've been called mafia, but we've also been called like a haven of tech wannabes. And some, like, lots of like nasty terms. So the advertising industry really doesn't like us. But yeah, no, I think people are professional enough to see that, you know, there is obviously competition, and the competition for the eyeballs of the user is also just a plain and fair competition like any other competition. And so, yeah, I think it's been okay. But yeah, we've got some very aggressive comments about what we do.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's quite interesting in that kind of way yeah. Okay. So we would have the expression in Australia to keep the bastards honest. So I guess that's actually what you do in theory.
Yeah, to a certain extent.
Cool. What's your, switching around. Do you have any issues with Google Ads?
Well, Google Ads Google is a wide form, so I think Google, as the biggest advertising company in the world, they have a lot of, like, if you remember that one slide with the different type of ad formats, Google has some of the best ad formats in the world, and they've also some, like YouTube ads, which are not that popular with users. So Google is a partner, is an acceptable ads partner on for the search ads. Been for many years. Those are good ads, but then there are also some other ones which are not as good. And often, for example, users also put Google ads into the content, and just too many of them. That's more the publisher's fault often. And those, of course, then are blocked. So I think Google ads is a broad term. Generally, my personal opinion is Google does a really good job of caring about the user experience, but it's a very broad field, yeah.
Cool. All right. I mean, you're pretty in the know with this kind of thing, and this is why I bumped up this question. What's next in terms of actually good advertising, or how to communicate your message and your brand, and what are you investing into next in this field?
Well, great question. If I knew, I would invest what the next big thing is. Certainly, I think VR, AR is one of the big next trends. Might still be too early, but it's. I expect something really or interesting stuff also in online advertising to come out of that segment.
Yeah. I mean, you also saw Google recently develop their new range of VR advertising, which is kind of...
Yeah, some good stuff in there.
So how are you going to block that?
Good question. Well, it's the same as with mobile phones. There are some ways. If it's an open ecosystem, and I've actually seen a prototype for a VR ad blocker. And it becomes interesting because suddenly you can then do things like offline VR ad blocking. Imagine take on a VR headset with a camera and then walk through Berlin and see Berlin ad free. By the way, there's a great initiative I was just told yesterday, Berlin ad free, trying to get rid of advertising in Berlin, which is great. But you can also do that technologically wise. And so I think that maybe 10 years down the road, that could be something for us.
Do you actually feel that there's a possible market for actual physical ad blocker, like someone that just goes around and paints ads black? Because that would be really nice.
Maybe, yeah.
Anyone want to sign up? Going once, going twice? Got a few hands. All right, cool. Let's just maybe two more questions before we got the next talk. Some marketers consider you a bit of a mafia-like practice, whitelisting these
well,
companies?
So one of the names we're sometimes called. Well, it's a very simple answer to that is obviously, and that's one of the things which makes our job hard, is we are a direct competition or threat to the companies who also write about us, the big publishing houses, which is hard. Like, it's hard to do PR if you fight about the ones who write about you. So yeah, sometimes we've been called things like that. We just don't think it's true, because at the end of the day, we have standards, and we're in the interest of the user. And well, if publishers don't meet those standards, well, that's not our problem. Okay. But the users otherwise would choose another ad blocker. And it's really something we want to rather change for the good and just make advertising better. Okay,
I'm gonna leave it on this one, because this is probably one that I'm also interested in. I mean, people have to eat, right? At the end of the day, and someone has to pay for our work. I know there's probably a ton of digital developers here. How do you see this working?
Yeah, great question. So. First of all, we think acceptable ads should strike a balance between publisher interests and user interests. And that's what we stand for. And it is meant for content providers to be able to pay. But then we also have a second approach, and it's one which is still in experimental steps. We, the company behind Adblock Plus, we've acquired Flatter. Some of you might know them, the micro payment service. And the idea is that at the end of the day, the biggest problem on the web when it comes to payment is that there is no payment, there is no micropayment system available as simple and as small as with ads, where literally you can pay half a cent to a publisher this way. And this is we want to change. So we're baking. You can sign up for the beta already, flatter.com, and the idea is, okay, as a user you want to choose whether you want a content ad financed or payment financed, and the choice should be yours on every site individually. And there should be no paywalls, there should be no silos, but it should be one nice system. And that's our 10-year vision, and that's, yeah, hopefully what we can tell something about in 10 years.
Cool. I really look forward to it. Big round of applause, everyone, for Tim.
Thank you.